Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to start today by looking at some of the satellite imagery from yesterday's severe storms here in the southern plains. And just watching here on the visible satellite data just before the sunset, some of these storms were just, they were incredible. What we saw on radar, what we ended up seeing from the damage in some of these towns across parts of Texas and Oklahoma last night from incredibly large hail. We had 7 reports of tornadoes and just incredibly strong winds. These storms were just quite potent. And this is just where most of the energy is being focused right now in the atmosphere. It's running over the top of a large ridge that's in this area, and these would be considered ridge-riding thunderstorms. And we need to have just a discussion about why these ridge-riding thunderstorms are not making it farther to the north and when we think they're going to get there. That's been a theme we've had now for a while, but just it's amazing what we're capable of seeing here from satellite now. I also just want to take note, we looked at this storm last night in the in-depth report, but just notice right on the back side of the this rear flank of this storm. This is just outflow right in through here. You can just see it kicking up dust in parts of northern Texas, even though there's been such incredibly heavy rains in this particular area. Now those storms, if we just take a look at the radar imagery from this morning, so here they are last night. Look at the other ones down here in this part of Texas, the severe weather that was already over parts of Florida Panhandle. Well, in the overnight hours, these continued to move through eastern Texas all the way into Louisiana, and then we knew that they were going to move so fast, but by midday today, they'll be right on top of this same area that these storms were yesterday. Now, outside of that, we had a supercell that came out of Michigan. I was watching it last night when I was recording. It had yet to take on full kind of supercell characteristics. About 30 minutes after I finished, I was like, holy smokes, that sucker looked, it was a huge storm in northern Ohio. And now this morning, we can see where that rain is moving through the rest of Ohio and then out here into parts of Pennsylvania. We do know there is the broader trough that has brought more moisture into parts of this side of central parts of North Dakota and scattered storms throughout. But when we boil it all down, this is what the severe reports look like from yesterday. So we have the complex of storms that rolled through here, the ones that were already set up in this area, and there it is. That was the storm that we just barely caught the beginning of yesterday when I was recording the in-depth report. So stitch it all together, that's 379 reports of severe storms. And if you go back to the day before that, we're going to add to that, take a look, another 579 in this area. We just kind of keep walking back through the week. This has been the corridor. So the ridge is here. Okay, that's the setup. There's a trough over the west in this area, and there has been a low that moved in this direction. So the boundary has been right in through this region. Well, the big story we've had is the ridge that's in Texas. We're going to watch to see if it expands and moves itself toward the north to change this pattern as we go forward. But as it stands, I just wanted to bring you the latest 3-day map of hail, and just to show you the amount of destruction we've seen to cropland all across this region. So from parts of Georgia all the way back to Colorado, just in the last 3 days into this area. Remember, this is the color for 3 inches. So when you're looking in here, a lot of baseball to softball size hail, and we saw that again last night. This morning's all-hazard weather map shows the severe thunderstorm watches that are still in place down here. We have the heat advisories and excessive heat watches and warnings that are out. Air quality issues continue to be a problem here in parts of Minnesota, getting into Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois. We have the flood watches that continue here along the Front Range and Colorado and back up into parts of Wyoming. But if we keep on this severe weather thought, this is what we're expecting for the rest of the day today. So severe storms moving through this part of the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to continue to watch this area now, but also this afternoon, and then watching the storms here as well. Going into day 2, same area. This is what we're expecting on Saturday, and then here's what we're expecting on Sunday. So this is going to be the focal area going forward. What is important to note is there is the risk of some thunderstorms coming through one of the driest parts of the country right into here, and we'll show you that again in a second. But the overall picture remains quite the same, okay? So as we get into the day on Saturday, it's the expansion of this ridge that we're going to watch carefully. So you see a little shortwaves that run over the top of it. Those are what kind of initiate the ridge-riding storms. And this ridge is going to be important in its net position and also in its size to get the subtropical jet to run over the top of it eventually. The big problem we've had, if you're in the I-states here, or into Wisconsin and Minnesota, is that we call this a saddle point. So things kind of split around this area. And this is one of the things that's preventing good moisture from getting back into this area in terms of rain and thunderstorms, is that we're kind of splitting around it. And we're going to continue to see the models do something like that into the foreseeable future. So when does that start to break? Well, let's go ahead and first just start with the updated high resolution models. And let's go back one tick there. There we go. So this is 7 o'clock this morning. As we play through the day today, again, watch more complexes of storms showing up in this area, not only this morning, but into tonight. This is what we're going to be keeping an eye on here moving through New England. If I take you back here a couple of steps, you can see the stronger storms moving through parts of Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, getting up to New Jersey here and possibly into this part of New York. But as we play through the evening hours and get this out into Saturday, watch what's coming out of Colorado right here. And as we go into the early morning hours on Saturday, there is this low that's going to come into parts of Nebraska, delivering some showers. And it's going to move into Iowa, delivering some showers and storms on Saturday night. And then this could move its way through Iowa, bringing some scattered rain. Another system to its south, a little wave coming through the panhandles into parts of Kansas. And then this could make its way into western Illinois, which is one of the driest spots in all of Illinois right now compared to normal. Now, we've known the National Weather Service has kept this at around a 40 to 50% chance of occurrence, but we're just continuing to see the near-term models kind of show up with that particular look. Now, that's not to ignore other things going on, like the deeper wave that's coming into the Pacific Northwest right in through here, or the frontal boundary that's sliding through parts of Florida right down here, delivering some heavy rain. I'm just keeping an eye on these places that have not seen much in the way of precipitation at all in about 30 to 35 days. Okay, from here, let's just add it up really quickly. This is the high-res NAM, adding it up through Sunday midday. And that's what we've got out of the model. So the heaviest rain's down here in Florida, some places picking up 6 to 10 inches. That's possible. More heavy rain coming out of Colorado. But we're going to see if these storms do, in fact, put down halfway decent moisture into this area by Sunday. Now from here, I'm going to back this up and just show you the latest update from the WPC. So this is from the National Weather Service. And if this looks familiar, it's almost just a repeat of what we've seen for so many days here. The saddle point, it's right in through here, just continues to rob this area of good flow. But coming out of parts of the Dakotas into Nebraska, this section here of the country down into the southeast, and with this next system, you saw it kind of trying to work its way into Illinois, but dipping and then setting up here. We're expecting rains in places that really need them. I'm talking about this area in the Carolinas up toward Virginia and into the mid-Atlantic. This has been an area that's been very, very dry lately as well in the month of June. So when does this start to fill in? Well, the near-term model forecasts have kind of given us a bit more, not so good news. So the European model for the next 7 days has kind of blanked a lot of this region. And as I showed you for the first time last night, I made these new model trend maps. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking at this morning's 0Z run and subtracting from it yesterday's 12Z run. So we're just going to do this with the 0 and 12 because the European model runs only out 90 hours in the 6Z and 18Z. So we're going to compare the longer runs. But what's important to see is that the model trended drier in this area. And there are some differences outside of that, but we're just looking for changes model run to model run. So what this means is we're now in this spot where we're waiting for the next event. And I imagine some of you on the call listen to the video right now are probably saying, it feels like we're always waiting for the next event. And whenever you have such momentum pulled out of the atmosphere in one area and just a lack of good flow, that's the case. And I just kind of come back to this saying I used to teach my students at the University of Illinois. The common phrase back in the Dust Bowl era, and that's not to compare this to the Dust Bowl era. I'm not doing that, but the phrase is what's important. But that phrase was, all signs fail in times of drought. And so you have to have a very strong signal that suggests things are going to break. And so we're still looking for that signal, but understanding these chances and how they fail, even though the models tend to show a result that's more favorable. But let's keep looking. Let's keep watching this together. So next thing I want to show you, this is the GFS model. And the GFS model has a very similar look overall to the European on keeping the same places kind of drier and the same places wetter. So we're seeing at least a similar signal in our major modeling system. But I want to take you from there and just show you what the pattern's up to. So this is starting off with the 0Z run today. And here are the little waves. See them right here. This is going through Saturday into Sunday that are running around this ridge. Now this was the wave we've been watching all week that in earlier runs had better chances of getting here. You say, where's that saddle point? It's right there. Can you see it? This is the spot. I'll put another arrow through it that is difficult to get the flow to break through. So watch this trough. This trough then dives into southern Illinois, goes over here toward Kentucky, Tennessee, but it did not penetrate into this particular region. Now, there is significant shifts that we have to talk about. One is this region. Look at the depth of this trough coming in the Pacific Northwest. This is on Monday. Very deep trough diving into that region. But notice what opens up out ahead of it. It reinforces this ridge, which builds up here into the Hudson Bay. So this is the solstice. This is the beginning of the 5-day time period that I say, if we do not see significant pattern changes, I'm not sure the atmosphere is going to have the ability to do that heading toward a critical time for this particular region that's been in drought. So we look at this. This is the 21st, going out there to the 22nd, 23rd. And again, we see the model out there past a week trying to increase the momentum of the subtropical jet. So I told you, watch that Texas ridge. See how it slid over here to this part of Mexico? That's an early indicator. But there is still this split in this area. That has got to go away. And if we watch out there again, beyond the 24th and 25th, there are some indications that the subtropical jet's going to make that move. So this is what the height field looks like. This is what the upper air wind field looks like. And we start to just wait to see if that pushes. And if that does occur, then what will happen is storms will initiate here and they'll carry through this region. And that would be exactly what is needed at the last possible minute for some of the crops in this particular part of the country. All right. So from here, let's go take a look at both models and see what they're up to. So we've got the GFS on the left, European on the right. As we play through the day today, we've already seen the near-term forecast. We're just going to park this out there Sunday morning. So this is that low that's going to try its hardest to miss parts of Iowa and Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and slide further south. So keep an eye on the European model here. You can see how the low brought its rains farther to the south into a place that desperately needs it, western Kentucky and Tennessee. But it just slides it to the south. And then as I play the rest of this, you're going to see green here like every single day. Now there's a deeper trough, remember, coming into the northwest, bringing more rain to Alberta and Saskatchewan and parts of British Columbia where we desperately need it. But just watch down in the southeast. It's in both models. Just rains, storms. They come back to the lower Mississippi River Valley. But I'm going to stop it right here on the 24th. This is what I like to see. In both models, there's this hint that we're opening up the Gulf to transport more moisture north. And if there's a deep trough here and the subtropical jet gets going, we'll be in business. It'll start to rain. But as you notice, I'm out there 216 hours in the forecast. So what we need to do now is we just need to look at the probabilities. So from now to the 26th, what are the chances of getting an inch of rain? They're highest here, Montana, much of the northern and parts of the central plains, and then of course the southeast. The donut hole is right in the middle here. What are the chances of getting less than a half inch? Very high throughout this area, 50 to 70% right now in the forecast. Now, could this begin to evolve and shift over the next 3 to 4 days? Absolutely, if those particular things take shape. And I want to show you that the most favorable thing I've seen in the forecast is in the week 2 outlooks. So from the CPC to the European, especially the European, notice this area, which had been so far on this side of the color bar showing dry, is now just barely on the first tick away from normal. So that means we're finally starting to see these storms initiate here and moving in this direction. It has been an exhausting time period forecasting and waiting for this to occur, but we do see similar pattern overall. Wetter in the Pacific Northwest, this is going to be problematic at some point because of the timing of events we have in the Pacific Northwest. Honestly, drier summer weather is what's key in this area. This could be upsetting for some of the cuttings of hay going forward, but I just want you to see that what the overall pattern is doing. Now, before this gets here, the temperatures do this. This is the next 5 days on average. We're just looking for where the warmth is versus where the cooler air is. And this is day 5 through 10. So there will be a buildup of heat. Remember, as that ridge expands in this area, so the trough dives, the ridge expands in this area. So we go back up and see these temperatures in that day 5 through 8 time period cranking up, back into the 90s. And this is when we have the wildfire threat reemerging in this part of Canada. But starting there with the ensembles, there it is. Watch this breakdown. So this is day 10 through 15. And that is where we start to see the hope in the pattern beginning to shift around. Some of that change is also being made evident in the tropics, and we've been watching this all week. The latest update from the National Hurricane Center, so this is their 2 a.m. update, so there might be another one by the time you watch this video. Just go to nhc.noaa.gov. They've now bumped this up to a 40% chance of development. I'm not only watching here, but I'm also keeping an eye on what's going on right down here, Because if I show you the latest forecast tracks from the European model, look, that's running out. But do you notice some sort of low trying to develop in this area down here and possibly moving over the Yucatan Peninsula into the Gulf of Mexico? We're looking for any indications that the Bermuda High, which is this, it's actually closer to home now, is going to start to expand its influence and drive some moisture in this direction. We do see, the models opening up to that. Let me show you one last thing, and then I'll wrap this up here. So I'm going to come back to the European model, and I'm going to look over here. Sorry, they got a lot of menu options for moisture. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the, in fact, I want to go to probabilities of moisture. Let's look at the probability of putting 1.5 inches of moisture out of the Gulf. So by day 10, this is what an open Gulf begins to look like. See that? That's a high probability of starting to advect or move that moisture into place. And what I like to see here is that it's not cutting that off. So there is some hope in this pattern to break a drought. But at this point, we are still in this wait and see time period. In the next 3 days will be critical. I will be releasing video content on Monday because it's critical importance of what's going on next week. So we'll make sure that we've got you updated. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you then. Thank you.